Hi, my name's Brandy. I'm going to be going over the organs within the digestive system. So if we can go over here. This is the oral cavity that is involved in ingestion, mechanical breakdown. It initiates propulsion into the pharynx, and it starts the chemical breakdown of starches. The mouth involves three accessory organs. The teeth, right here. The salivary glands, this is the parotid salivary gland. The sublingual salivary gland, and the submandibular salivary gland. As I said, the food particles are broken down into starches, and the teeth are involved with mastication, which is the tearing and grinding of food, breaking it down into smaller fragments. The tongue, right here, is involved with gripping food and repositioning it during chewing. It initiates propulsion by moving the food to the back of the oral cavity down into the pharynx, which I have another diagram for that. The salivary glands, the parotid, sublingual, and submandibular, they help moisten food along with the tongue and compact it into a bolus, which was a ball of food stuff. The salivary glands are also known to cleanse the mouth, dissolve food chemicals so that they can be tasted, and the glands contain enzymes that break down the food into they break down starchy food. So moving on down here to another diagram, after the tongue initiates propulsion, it goes down into the pharynx, which is posterior. So you can see here's the trachea. So it moves down into the oropharynx and then into the laryngopharynx. It's the common passageway for food, fluid, and air. Fun fact, the nasopharynx, which is up here where you breathe in, where the air comes in, it has no digestive role. So moving on, we go down into the esophagus. The esophagus is about 10 inches long. It's involved with food propulsion. The esophagus goes through the mediastinum of the thorax, piercing the diaphragm, which is about here, and it enters the abdomen, joining the stomach at the cardial orifice. Fun fact, the esophagus is collapsed when not involved in food propulsion. So moving over here, this is the stomach. As you can see, here's the body and then the lower part of the stomach. The stomach is about 12 inches long if you were to stretch it out like this. The gastroesophageal sphincter relaxes to let food in, and then closes, preventing regurgitation so it can't go back up into the esophagus. The lower muscle of the stomach mixes food with digestive juices, which is stomach acid, into a creamy semi-fluid food mass called chyme. When the stomach empties, if you go back over here, it goes through the pyloric sphincter, which is another sphincter which prevents regurgitation. And it goes through the pyloric sphincter into the first of three sections of the small intestine, the duodenum. The duodenum is about 10 inches long. It's the first part of the small intestine right after the stomach. The food is mixed with bile and other digestive juices from accessory organs. We'll go over that. It absorbs iron, calcium, and magnesium, and then after all of that is done, it goes into the jejunum. But first we're going to go through the accessory organs. If we go back over here, the first one is the liver. The liver is the largest organ of the human body. Functions include production of chemicals necessary for digestion, synthesis of protein, and detoxification. The major function of the liver is producing a bile that is yellowish, kind of greenish. The bile aids in the digestion of absorptions of fats. It also stores glucose, iron, and vitamins A, B12, and D. The liver also sends out nutrients into cells of the body. After bile is produced in the liver, it goes down into the gallbladder, which is right here. It's usually underneath or within one of the lobes of the liver. The gallbladder is approximately 3 inches long. It looks like a little balloon. Over here's a better one. There's the gallbladder right there. The bile produced in the liver is released into the gallbladder and then released into the duodenum. when fats need to be broken down and absorbed. Bile in the gallbladder becomes more concentrated and more effective in breaking down these fats. Another fun fact is gallstones are a common disorder of the gallbladder. Gallstones are formed when there's too much cholesterol in the bile, causing the need for the removal of the gallbladder, which is one of the organs that can be removed without having that much of an effect. So we'll go back over here. You can kind of see it. It's under, kind of behind the stomach is the pancreas. The pancreas gland is both an exocrine and an endocrine gland. The exocrine function is the secretion of amylase and lipase. These enzymes aid in the further breakdown of food, mainly carbohydrates, lipids, and proteins. The endocrine function, it secretes insulin and glucagon. Insulin enables the digestion of carbohydrates, and the pancreas also secretes an antacid to help the stomach when it's feeling upset. So that deals with all of the bile that's secreted into the duodenum. And after that, we'll go into the longest part of the small intestine, which is the jejunum. The jejunum is a small part of the a big part of the intestine. It's a coiled tube, which is thicker and more vascular than the ileum. It lies right here, is where your belly button usually is, and there's small finger-like projections in the wall called villi. These villi are covered with smaller projections called microvilli. The villi increase the surface area of the jejunum and allows much more absorption of nutrients in this part of the intestine. Most of the food absorption is done here. Simple sugars, water-soluble vitamins, and amino acids made from the food is passed from the villi into the bloodstream, while fat is passed into lymph capillaries. The rest of the food passes into the ileum, which is the last part of the small intestine right about here. As you can see, there's no set line between the jejunum and the ileum, but you can tell the difference because the jejunum is thicker and the ileum is thinner. The last absorption of nutrients from the food takes place here. Amino acids, fat-soluble vitamins, fatty acids, cholesterol, sodium, potassium, alcohol, B12, etc., etc., etc. The terminal ileum is an important part because this is where the vitamin B12 is absorbed into the blood capillaries. The unabsorbed and undigested food then passes from the ileum into the cecum, which is the first part of 3 of the large intestines, which you can see right here. This food residue is full of bacteria, but it's good bacteria. Before we get into the large intestines, if you look down here, this is the appendix, which is coming off of the cecum. It's shown to have no use, but modern studies are showing now that the appendix contains lymphoid tissue, which is important in the role of body immunity. It stores bacteria and it recolonizes the gut with normal flora when needed. So going back up to the cecum, this is where your undigested material is. The cecum, or the large intestine, is approximately 5 feet long and wider than the small intestine. The surface area is smaller, even though it's wider. It's smaller than the small intestine. The large intestine is divided into the cecum, colon here, and then the rectum. Food passes from the small intestine to the cecum, and then into the colon, which is this part. The colon is split into 4 parts. The ascending colon, there's the transverse colon, the descending colon, and then the sigmoid colon. This is where salts, fluids, all that stuff is absorbed, and the undigested food moves up, over, and then down, and then into the rectum. The colon soaks up about 50 fluid ounces of water every day. After absorption, the remaining undigested material is squeezed into a bundle of feces, which it's passed into the rectum, right about here, and it's stored until it's passed out through the anus as a bowel movement, which it crosses the sphincter. The anus has a voluntary and involuntary sphincter that can tell the difference between gas and solid contents. And that is it for the digestive system. Thank you.